There was a question which came in 2025 paper. What were the challenges before Indian economy when world is moving away from free trade and multilateralism to protectionism and bilateralism, and how these challenges could be met? So first of all, you need to think about few terms here. They have talked about free trade, multilateralism, protectionism, and bilateralism. So you need to know what these words are. Then the question is asking about challenges before Indian economy in this context, right? In this context where world is moving towards protectionist measures, and how these challenges could be met. So for this, the first thing which you will have to do is that you will have to read the chapter on foreign trade of economic survey of this year and last year also, and chapter on foreign trade in Uma Kapila, or whichever book you're following. So it will give you enough idea of what exactly to include in this question. So we can start by talking about this, that in post World War II era, so that was a time when free trade was pushed, when multilateralism was pushed. So when you talk about free trade, it means that no barriers on trade, no tariff barriers, no non-tariff barriers. So all of this is going to promote efficiency and competitiveness. When you talk about multilateralism, so multilateralism is that it is like the cooperation among various countries under one head. For example, WTO, right? Uh, so those trade agreements, and recent trends is going towards what? Protectionism. You are creating barriers for other goods to come into your country, whether it could be tariff barrier or non-tariff barrier, whatever. Uh, so, or to protect your domestic industries. And bilateralism. So there can be agreement, but agreement between two countries. But there are downsides to bilateralism also. Supposedly, my country is going to have a bilateral trade agreement with the other country, and if the other country is huge, then my bargaining power becomes very weak, right? So that is the problem with bilateralism. So all of this, why exactly would have happened? What exactly would have happened in recently, which has led to protectionism and bilateralism? In very simple terms, please explain that COVID-19 has exposed um, the over reliance on the global supply chains. So in case if there is break in one point in supply chain, everything else is disturbed, and that happened. So people thought, I mean, there is no point of over relying on global supply chains. So why don't we um, develop it at home or with fewer partners? Then you know about US and China. So the kind of the tussle which is going on between US and China over trade, and the sanctions which are being put. So all of that is also leading towards protectionism. Then one thing what is also seen is that since 2019, WTO dispute redressal mechanism was weakened. So in case if any country uh, has not fulfilled the promises made in the contract, in the trade contract, then to whom I will go? If dispute redressal agency is also weakened, to whom I will go? So I'll say, okay, forget about it. Let's have a bilateral trade agreement, like that. And there is an upsurge of economic nationalism, and the tariff hikes. You've seen US increasing these tariffs. So all of this has led to the protectionism and bilateralism. So sometimes they have led to protectionism and bilateralism, and sometimes these protectionism have led to these conditions also. So it's like this. Now, about the challenges for India. So if you read whichever book you read, maybe you read Datan Sundaram, or uh, whichever book, Uma Kapila, then she has also talked about few challenges which recently India is facing. One is the slow growth of exports because of Maybe these reasons only, but there is a slow growth of exports which is happening. So in merchandise exports, from April to December 2024, 6% growth has been seen, but this is slower growth, right? Although there is growth, but it is not much. And uh, this data is taken from economic survey. So you will have to give evidences of whatever you are saying. And why merchandise exports are growing slow? Because of the tariff barriers. Then for gem, jewelry, chemicals, survey also tells that non-tariff barriers are being imposed. Only this much of gems can come into the country. I mean, or jewelry can come into the country, chemicals can come into the country. So non-tariff barriers are being imposed by our trading partners. That is there. As far as India is concerned, we have heavy import dependence as far as semiconductors are concerned, as far as crude oil is concerned, rare earth material is concerned. So what we do is that we are dependent upon the global supply chain also for many of our critical inputs. And in case if there is any disruption in the global supply chain, the entire production cycle breaks. And what is this going to lead to? Increase in costs. That is there. Then WTO dispute mechanism is weakening. And I've told you, because if the dispute mechanism itself is going to be weakened, you will say, fine, I mean, why do we have to go to WTO then? Why can't we have a bilateral negotiation? But the problem with the bilateral negotiation is that there can be a weakened bargaining power. And more so for the SMEs, small and medium enterprises. So that is there. And then you have geopolitical pressures also. So you have US bloc on one side and China bloc on the other side. You have to have trade with both of them. So you need to align the balance between these two blocks. It's very difficult to take sides. Although the time is there that you have to take up one side, but because you can't be neutral for so long. But still, I mean, for economic pressures, you will have to have a neutral side so that you can have the benefits from both the blocks. But that is what it is. So these are the challenges for India. So fill this up with more data, if you can. Just one point is enough, or more policies also. So in the next part here, we have talked about what are the government initiatives which could be thought of as facing these challenges. So one of the initiative is that you can have free trade agreements, you can have comprehensive economic partnership agreements. So India also had India UAE CEPA 2022 is there. So give more examples of such trade agreements also. So in case if that is there, then fine. I mean, we can still navigate our path in these tough times also, in case if we have proper trade agreements. Although world is moving towards protectionism, but because of these free trade agreements, because of these bilateral agreements, at least with one country, we can have some kind of an arrangement. Okay, fine, we are going to sell our goods to you and you'll be selling something to us on these terms, whatever. So that is the way of navigating through in these tough times. Services, as far as services are concerned, there are less restrictions on services, less. So you have to leverage this. So I think there was a 12% growth in the services export from April to November 2024, taken from economic survey only. Then give examples of Atmanirbhar Bharat and production linked incentive scheme. So this is for the self-reliance. So if you're able to produce most of the things in your home only, why do you have to depend upon imports then? But that's very far-fetched. You can't produce everything at home, right? But we're not talking about self-sufficiency, we're talking about self-reliance, right? Production linked incentive scheme, I've already discussed in the recording as well. You can see that. In which government is going to give you financial incentives after you have achieved a certain level of production, which you promised in the contract. So, I mean, all of this is towards self-reliance. All of this is towards that, so that you do not have to depend upon other countries, right? Then strategic stockpiling, alternate supplier basis. So why do you have to depend upon only one supplier for a certain kind of raw material? Have the alternate suppliers also. So in case if there is any problem with one particular supplier, you can depend upon the other. Friend shoring, right? So you can take it up from the trusted partners, like for example, Japan, EU, Australia. Strengthening regional trade via SARC, Indo-Pacific linkages. So regional trade agreements, they should also be uh, promoted. So all of these initiatives, they are telling that yes, government is also doing its own part, and India is not powerless, and India is navigating its path through these measures. So this is the way uh, you should be preparing. So please read, I think, the chapter on foreign trade in economic survey, and also read chapter on foreign trade in Uma Kapila, or whichever book you're following, right? So that you get more points in this. Answer writing is something which, I mean, you will be you will be adept at as you write more and more answer. So don't think when you write an answer it will always be a best answer. There is nothing like a best answer. Someone else can always write a better answer than you, right? But try to include points, whatever. But while you are preparing, don't worry about the time. Write as an assignment. But when you do the test, then of course you will have to think about it. But मैं शुरू में, I mean, what I tell students is initially you write a lengthy answer so that you have most of the points, and then uh, you can actually reduce the points in the time limit conditions of the tests. But initially, don't just write points. So here I've just written points, but you will have to write complete English. Okay? Don't write like this. So this is just to explain the point, huh? But you will be writing it properly. And more answers you write, more confidence you will have. चलिए, I hope it was useful to you. Thank you, beta.